like Brian, I was on CompuServe for some time. I released my first piece of software there. I played Islands of Kesma, there was some game there. And meanwhile, I was calling up PSINet and basically begging them for a cheap connection, a cheap point-to-point connection. And they basically refused to sell it to me. Like, shut up, kid, stop bothering us, right? I remember going to the university I would end up going to and begging them for an account. And they're like, no, you have to be a student here. And I'm like, you guys all suck. And even messing around with Telenet, the frame relay accounts provider, to sort of use the CompuServe account there to Telnet to other exciting places on the network, which was borderline illegal at the time, and because it wasn't paid for in the same manner, you know. And and so I had this hunger to get on the internet. And so when I finally got into a proper college, because I was a terrible student, when I finally got into a proper college, a classmate of mine and I, the web basically came out right when I got there, and I was in my CS class with him, and I was like, oh, we should really set one of these up. And they wouldn't let us use ports under 1,000. On the Unix machines there, but we could use ports over 1,000. And so he went and he bought a domain, and I set up the server and everything. And it turns out the domain he got was incredibly profane, to the point where, like, the DNS authority at the time didn't want to give it to him because it was a deity and then an F word. And I'm like, really? That's the one you picked? The one that's going to get us kicked out of school? That's great. And so I just did some stuff off of the domain names of the school for a while, and he went off and did that. He ended up getting kicked out of school for something unrelated later. I mean, he was hacking something, but it's not important. He was a very good developer. And so I would work on the web as part of my schoolwork, but my exposure to open source is the important one.
We're getting there.
Okay, can I just jump to that? If that's your next question. So in my operating systems class, they wanted us to do interesting things at the operating system level. And so I went out, and this was 1994, I think. And I went out and I got a copy of Linux. I installed it on a machine because the computer labs at George Mason were incredibly packed all the time and poorly ventilated and poorly air conditioned. And boy, did they smell. And you would walk in there, and it was like getting a slap in the face with a curry-soaked rag. And it was bad. So, but by installing Linux and doing the work on that, I was able to basically do all of my operating system work and do it very quickly. And it was higher performant than the Sun machines that were in the lab anyway. And it was terrific, and it was really, really revelatory, almost. And so I started as a practicalist, basically. Linux did what I wanted, and I could do with it what I pleased. I didn't have to ask anyone's permission, I didn't have to wait in line, I didn't have to go inside an under air-conditioned room. It was great. And that sort of has guided my career in open source. I really like releasing my software and working with my peers in computer science, but it's really nice being able to control your own destiny and not having to go into school at 3 in the morning just so you can use a computer lab that's running what you need to run, and all that might come with that. So that's why I got involved in Linux and open source early on, and it's been great ever since then.